All Metal Mule panniers are designed and manufactured in the UK. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
Right, if I was to say to you that for £7,500 you could get a brand new Dualsport bike created specifically for adventuring, built around a tried and tested middleweight engine and full hard luggage, would it sound just too good to be true? Maybe, maybe not. Let's see.
Who would ever have guessed it? There has seemed like there's just as much anticipation for this middleweight, unassuming Dualsport bike as there was last year for the Honda Africa Twin. No, really. And getting hold of this little bike, well, it's been like finding the proverbial rocking horse poo. And Adventure Bike TV is making the first TV review of it. But before we get to the bike, just a bit of history for those of you, and I'm sure there are plenty of you, who know little, if anything, about the recently relaunched SWM. Yes, I said relaunched. For those of you that are of a certain vintage, you might well remember the brand back in the 70s and early 80s. Well, until they went under in 1984. Now they are reinvigorating, bringing together Ampelio Marchi, former engineer with some of Italy's most well-known bike brands like Agiva and Aprilia, with Daxing Gong, the successful Chinese businessman behind the Shinere Group. In a deal reputed to be worth about 50 million, it looks like SWM have the backing to make a serious go of it. And they're building in the old BMW-built Husky factory, quality using from the bricks as well as from this bike. In the weird and wonderful world of motorbike adventuring, all the big manufacturers seem hell-bent on creating bigger, heavier and faster adventure bikes, whereas in reality there are very, very few adventurers that would prefer those big bikes for serious, big trips or round-the-world trips. In reality, they want something a little simpler and lighter that, when the tarmac ends, they can still keep going, even when they come off. But their money still seems to be going the way of the big bucks, big brands. And only time will tell whether the extra size of the SWM helps to bridge the gap between the little bikes like the CCM 450 and the big boys. This bike has effectively been created around an 8-year-old Husqvarna specification, and you could argue that it might be the perfect Dualsport adventure spec, with its weight at just 169 kilos without fuel. That is seriously light. But it is tall enough and powerful enough with 45 horsepower and with reasonable enough fuel capacity to feel and ride like a bike that could really take you places. It could munch away the miles at a very steady and pleasant 70 miles an hour and then jump straight on the trail, or even on the track, or even a really, really muddy track, and feel equally at home. And if you fall over, it's going to be dead easy to pick up. And you know what? For every bit as much as I understand the safety aspect of ABS and traction control, quick shifters, etc., I did not miss any of them as I was riding this bike. The fun factor truly belied its little power figure and the lack of electronic wizardry. The engine pulled hard and smooth all the way through the rev range, and there was very little evidence of the kind of vibrations you often expect with a medium weight single cylinder bike. The suspension was just a little bit soft on the tarmac, but it was perfectly set up for the trails, and as there is some adjustment, I'm sure we could dial out the softness for the roads. You would certainly hope that the engine is going to be super reliable, bearing in mind it is built on the old Husqvarna TE610 Enduro bike, which is well tried and tested. SWM has given it a bit of a modern tweak with fuel injection, electric start, Euro 4 exhaust, etc, etc. It is a great package, but it's not without an odd niggle or two. You need fingers the width of a crochet needle to get between the clocks and the cables to put the ignition key in and get it back out. The styling of the tank, although great looking, was just a little bit low for my knees, and I couldn't quite get my legs into it, but it didn't make it uncomfortable to ride. And on occasion, the electric start wasn't instantaneous. But on reflection, these are just niggles. Nothing big. This is a great bike.
Right, so at the start of this review, I said, is this bike too good to be true? Well, before I answer that question, let me just go through some of the particulars. Right, how this bike looks. I think it looks apart. I think it looks like a great adventure bike. Now, in terms of the engine, now there was something of a bit of a surprise to me, because in some ways, because it's based on a kind of slightly older engine, I was expecting it to be, I'm not saying a bit of a dog, but I was expecting it to be not that great. But in many ways, it reminded me of my 690 KTM. It really pulled well from down below in the revs, got me up to exactly 70 miles an hour on the big roads, and off-road, it was a delight. Now, in terms of the handling, that was interesting as well, because on the tarmac, to me, it felt a bit more like riding a supermoto. You really kind of felt like you were over the front wheel, but actually, on the tarmac, that's what I wanted. But as soon as I got off the tarmac, it felt like an off-road bike. So you'd almost say, the perfect adventure bike. Overall, I thought the bike was a great package, and for $7.5 grand, it's fantastic value for money. Would I have one in my garage? Absolutely I would.
Our Ute panniers won the Best Buy award from Ride magazine, simply stating it's a premium product at a lower price. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.